Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008. We have economic crisis, and we start to go into this collective experience of death and rebirth around this idea, the patriarchy, authority, self-responsibility, personal responsibility, what that means to us. That transit ended, or it's about to come back for a hot stint during the election, which is a whole thing astrologically. We'll move into Aquarius in November, and we'll stay there until 2043. And what I believe this is us birthing something that has never existed before in many areas of our life. Because Aquarius is the anarchist, the rebel, the disruptor. It is individual freedom. It is about, I want to be all of who I am, and I want the same freedom for you. And so we are really like in this huge moment in time where anything is really possible. And again, we don't know how it's gonna play out because there's always free will.
Catie, welcome to the whole shebang.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I love these connections. It's Lionsgate Portal Day. I feel like
it is.
The day we're recording on that day, which you selected, and I think it'll be fun to hear a little bit from you about your experience on this day, why this day, what it means in the astrology. So maybe do you want to just start there? We start there. It's so relevant.
Yeah. Okay. So it's the moment that the sun comes to this exact point and lines up with Sirius, which is a star in the sky. And it's thought, we have all of these points in the astrological wheel and moments of transition where we're on this earth able to connect to more clearly the divine forces. And any repeating number is a powerful number. So we have, 8 is the number of transformation. It is an infinity symbol, which discusses or really resonates with this idea of change and our infinite nature. It's also a representation of the breath body, prana, our life force. And this year is especially special because the numerology of the year itself is 8. So we have August 8th, 2024. And if you add up 4, 2, and 2, that equals 8. So it's really 888, which, obviously doesn't happen every single year. So it's just a moment where we are clear, connected, both to the earthly realms as well as the cosmic realms. And it's, if anything, just a sign to pay attention. To pay attention to what experiences come up, what conversations you have. And, in magic, we look at these sort of high holy days as important for ceremony, ritual, and to connect with, all the power, Great Spirit, the earth, and the power within ourselves.
I'm gonna back us up a little bit and then take us back here. So we're gonna twist and turn and go in some circles.
Yeah. It's going to be like the evolution and the divine dance of life.
It is. It's exactly what it's gonna be. How long have you been, I don't even want to say interested in, incorporating studying astrology? Has this been a lifelong thing for you?
No, not at all. I did not grow up. I always grew up looking at my, reading my horoscope in the newspaper. I'm a Virgo, and we are highly identified with being Virgos. If you have any Virgo sun friends, we really love being Virgos, I think. And it's something that I remember reading, my horoscope in the newspaper, but I didn't understand really much more beyond that. And it always felt, sort of connected to what I was experiencing at the time, but I had no deep understanding on what this truly was as a tool. And I would say I probably started studying or paying attention to my own astrology, my own personal astrology. It's 2024, so probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And it began really truly through a curiosity, and I had, my first reading, and some of it felt resonant, some of it wasn't as resonant. And then I started to pick up a lunar practice and worked with the full moon and the new moon, and that naturally evolved into a deeper relationship to the cosmos. So I would say that, I've been really implementing this within my own self-awareness practice and healing work for probably about 5 years, 5 or 6 years, and working with clients one-on-one for a little over 2 years.
Okay, fantastic. What a fun journey just to go down that path. And maybe one, part of where I want to go with this, if you're okay with this, is, and I would still I'm like a believer. I don't know, I even want to put it in the terms of believing and non-believing, because to me right now, so much of the way synchronicities are happening in my world and the way things are unfolding, there's not an option but to believe, because it's this is too wild, this is really real. And when I grew up, I'm not going to ask you your age, but I'll tell you I'm 42. So when I was little and in my religious upbringing, astrology and horoscopes in the newspaper were literally akin to witchcraft, which now I'm bring on the witchcraft. I'm just
oh yeah,
because I've learned the history of what's really behind that. All that being said, there was a mystical element, there was what felt like a dark element, and all of that at the time felt very in the shadows. It felt shamed, it felt wrong, it felt bad. And so it really hasn't been probably until the same period of time for me that the universe has opened up the holiness, the divinity in all of these tools, or these things that bring us a greater sense of our own divinity, I would say, and our connection to. And so I don't know exactly what the pointed question is for you, and I don't necessarily think we need to spend a bunch of time trying to convince unbelievers of this. But for somebody who is I just don't get it, maybe, I don't get how astrology or how the stars have anything to do with tomorrow for me. Would you have something to say to that?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I actually don't see myself as someone who's here to try to prove it, to try to make you a believer. If someone came to me and they were deeply curious, saying, I don't quite understand, can you share more? I'm curious about learning. Then of course I'd love to open up the conversation and convey how I utilize astrology as a language for liberation or as a tool for self-awareness. But if someone's coming to me with, really fear-based, closed-off mentality around astrology isn't real. I'm sure you probably saw the Adam Grant article. It was probably a few months back by now, where he was debunking astrology based on some really low-grade science. And knowing that it wasn't actually really rooted in what the sacredness or the divinity, as you said, of this practice. It's just not I don't really care to have that conversation, not because I don't think that I can quote unquote prove it, but simply because if they are not really willing to invite in conversation, then that's okay. It's okay to have different belief systems, different ideas about what is real and true, and I can hold space for there to be multiple truths, because I just don't see us all believing there's, how many 8 billion people on this planet now or something. I don't see us all believing in the exact same thing. And if we did, what would life look like? What would the spectrum of life be? So And I assume potentially you're wondering, how do I describe astrology with that question? And I'm also happy to go there if that was kind of also what you were looking to understand. But
yeah, it's both. And I think I'm happy that you just said what you said. I appreciated this from our first conversation. I'll just say, like, your energy is really, to me, it's really clear. It's really clear and it's pointed and it's clear on where your focus is and what your, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my perception, just kind of like my dharma, and where you're called or prompted to put your energy and where you're not. And it's really liberating for me to hear that too, just to say, like, you're setting a boundary without gating people out, right? You're just saying, I'm choosing not to spend the energy trying to convince somebody. I'd rather spend my energy on me, on others, on the work that I'm doing. And also, I love how you said, I can still hold space for a different perspective. And that, to me, bravo, like, because it's really hard to say I have an open mind and then also have an open mind to the perspective that might be trying to debunk what I believe. Like, yeah, how can I have an open mind to you, Adam Grant, if you're debunking my life's work? But, like, hey, listen, I can hold space for that. I just don't need to spend my time on that. So I think this is a good, just like a little, like, stick a pin in it side note, because that's so important, I think, for all of us to understand where to do that in our lives,
This is the whole point, is to understand energetically where to focus your energy based on greater self-awareness, self-trust, respect, and acceptance. And that, of course, for me, I thank you for those words. I do feel very clear. I feel very pointed and focused and determined to some degree with where my focus and my purpose is really taking me in this lifetime. And it's been through deep work of understanding myself on all levels to get to that point of clarity. And I mean, this is like, could take us into a whole big conversation, but as I was even just dropping into my breathwork practice this morning, what was really coming through for me as I'm birthing this next season of one of my women's containers for women in leadership, I was just hearing this, like, people are not clear. They are not clear. And if you think about it or liken it to a crystal clear blue sky, that is clarity, right? You can see with absolute certainty what is in front of you. But if there is fog, or if there is pollution, or if there is cloud cover or some type of disruptive substance in between yourself and what is in front of you, you can't see clearly. And so, and we're getting into a tangent, as I knew this would happen with the portal of the 8 gate, but I was just hearing this, like, there isn't a lot of clarity, and people need support in understanding how to create that for themselves. I'll stop there for now.
What do you think is representing, and if it's okay, I think this is a really fun tangent, I think, to go down, if you're okay with it for a minute here. When you say people, or when you're hearing, sensing, feeling into people aren't clear, what do you think is representing the fog or the pollution? Is it that they're not clear on their vision, on their dharma, or is it that they're not clear energetically? Or what is that, if you can feel into that for me, what's there for you?
Yeah. And I also want to specify that I'm not saying women are the only ones that are unclear. It's just simply that I have a container for women where we are working with the elements each season. Air is the next season that's coming up. So, I don't want to offend any listeners here. This is a more collective energy that I'm picking up on. And it's what I'm feeling into is the emotional overwhelm that we collectively are experiencing, witnessing the extreme spectrum of the human experience right now playing out in front of us every single day, knowing that technological advancements have given us such an ability to connect to one another and to be connected right now into places that are thousands of miles away from one another. But it also has connected us to so much that we can't physically contain every single day. Witnessing the experiences that are happening around the world, witnessing death consistently every single day, witnessing suffering on so many levels. When we're not aware of how that impacts us emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, even on all levels, it can be really easy to shut down, to collapse, to take absorb so much of this emotional energy and then not really process it through our bodies. And when our emotional experience can really directly impact our ability to see clearly. And so it's this kind of threshold initiatory moment where, and this is also kind of playing out in what's happening on a collective level astrologically, but we really are being invited into a deeper understanding of what are we experiencing in our body, what is kind of our threshold for emotional capacity, or where is our emotional capacity and where is our threshold and our boundary for what we energetically can hold. And if we're not constantly recalibrating and checking in with ourselves, that residual energy really starts to back the system up. And that leads to that fogginess. And that can come through physical symptoms too, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of different symptoms that can be from like lethargy or burnout or high levels of anxiety and stress. But I do feel, and this is again, my one opinion based on my lived experience, but I think it has a lot to do with this piece of our lived human experience right now in 2024.
Yeah. I mean, this might be like really I have two questions in mind. One, what kinds of boundaries could we consider setting? And then two, how do we recalibrate that energy? Is the boundary thing as simple as like, let's have less time on technology, or is it an energetic boundary? So there's the boundaries, and then how do we recalibrate our energy?
We need to build greater energetic capacity to hold greater and greater energy, first and foremost. And that comes through a disciplined practice of some sort that would probably be labeled self-care on some social media, Instagram, TikTok. I'm old school. I don't do TikTok, but I have to remember that is a big part of most people's lives. But it's really about self-preservation. And if we don't have the nervous system capacity to hold that energy, of course we're going to short circuit. And so we build that through how we nourish ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, by paying attention to what we're consuming, by getting back into nature, reconnecting, grounding into Mother Earth, breath work, meditation, movement, these practices that I'm not recreating the wheel by prescribing them. We've been told these things all along, but it is really these simple rituals that we work with every single day that allow us to stand courageously in the face of our lives and not collapse out of fear or out of overwhelm or out of or disassociate, right, when things get really hard, but to stay in our bodies, to breathe through the discomfort, and to be able to show up in our personal and professional worlds. And this is a big Saturn in Pisces, and I know we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about like what's happening collectively, but this is really a big Saturn in Pisces lesson that we've all been collectively learning from March of 2023. It will shift into Aries next year in May of 2025. We'll come back for a very short final stint and then finally move on in 2026. But there is this, Pisces is the connection and transcendence of our humanness into some type of connection to spirit, whether you say God, Mother Earth, our higher selves, the universe, the cosmos. There's so many different names for this creative force. And Saturn represents consistent discipline. Showing up every single day and really engaging with practices that support you in feeling expanded, feeling embodied, being able to touch into that expanded consciousness, but without losing a connection to what's happening for you physically. So that kind of answers the piece about like, number one, we have to engage with practices that allow us to call in and hold greater and greater energies. And this is what allows us to be in relationship to opposing truth without getting defensive or shutting down or, pointing a finger out of fear, but really to stay open in the face of that and to look curiously at a different perspective of life. And then boundaries, yes. I think that is also a big part of a spiritual practice, is knowing what you're spending your time on. What are you paying attention to? Saturn is also the planet of boundaries and limitations, and it gets a really bad rap because, people don't like to be told no all the time. And sometimes we have to tell ourselves no, right? We have to hold ourselves, because it is about holding ourselves accountable to something. And where one of my teachers has always said that, you know what people worship by what they spend their time on. And Saturn really does have to do with time. It is about what are you spending your time on? Where are you avoiding taking responsibility for your life? And Saturn in Pisces has been this collective journey for us to really look at where we're shutting down, where we're potentially feeling overwhelmed emotionally, and then what we reach to in those moments.
Just to make sure I'm getting this right. So you said that Pisces is representative of the spiritual nature, the relational spiritual. Okay. So relational spiritual, and then Saturn is representative of discipline, boundaries, and how are those? Maybe this is where you can go into what's happening astrologically. Great. How are the two planets, how are they working together right now? And what else is happening on a broader scope? Maybe that's a good segue.
Yeah. So to kind of step back quickly and just for anyone that isn't familiar with how we utilize astrology is sort of threefold. First, it is descriptive. So we have anything born at a moment in time will have the characteristics of that moment as well as the potentiality of that moment. So that is your birth chart. And we use it to understand ourselves on a deeper level, to create greater intimacy with who we are, the lessons, the challenges, the gifts that we came into this lifetime with, and to connect to that greater sense of spiritual purpose. So that's one way we use astrology. The second way is through the lens of the planets as they are moving in the sky at any moment in time. So you're born at a moment in time, and there is a snapshot of the sky, which is your birth chart, that leads us to understand you on a deeper level as a human being. Then you take that birth chart and you start to see how the planets are consistently in motion, moving throughout that chart, activating different energies. And that is what we call transits. We all collectively experience transits when a sign or a planet shifts into a new sign. And personally, it may or may not be more impactful based on your own individual chart. Okay, so I'm talking specifically about Saturn moved into Pisces for everyone back in March of last year, and will be there until its final ingress into Aries in 2026. During that time, the planet really represents specific themes or kind of attributes that exist within our consciousness. And Pisces is the motivation or the desire and needs. And when you put those two together, the sign flavors how that planet gets its needs and motivations achieved or fulfilled. Okay, so as a planet moves throughout the solar system, it moves into a different sign and almost takes on a different characteristic or a different embodiment. Pisces is very different than Aries, right? We have water to fire. Those are going to represent themselves very differently. So Saturn moving through Pisces is this collective experience where we are all being tasked with, because Saturn is kind of a taskmaster. How are we engaging with our spiritual practice? And spiritual practice can mean many different things. It doesn't have to mean always meditation or yoga, but those are really clear, scientifically proven ways to connect with consciousness, essentially. It could be as simple as, creativity or spending time in nature again, or connecting with animals, right? There's all of these different ways that we can engage with a spiritual practice, but it does really require that we do it consistently. And when we don't, we notice how that greatly impacts our resilience and our ability to show up as our whole, full, courageous selves in our lives. Did that help clarify?
That was perfect. That was great.
Okay, great.
I appreciate that. Okay. So can you go into more astrologically of where we're at now collectively, and maybe a bit of what you see us moving into, or how you utilize astrology as a tool looking forward as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So predictive astrology or evolutionary astrology is the understanding that the energies are evoking certain cycles of growth or limitation in our personal and collective lives. So again, as the planets continue to move through the chart, they're creating new cycles, they're ending, beginning, or moving through different opportunities. And we utilize astrology from a predictive lens, not to foretell the future, because we're not fortune tellers. We don't have the power to will something into being for someone else. There's always free will on the table, 100%. But what we do know is that we're gauging certain patterns and giving meaning to those patterns. And that energy can take a high or kind of a low evolutionary cycle. We always want to, you can think about it as light or shadow, high or low, whatever kind of you want to describe that in your own frame of reference. But we want to really maximize the potential of that opportunity, whether it is something that is going to bring us joy or is going to be rather challenging in our life. And collectively, we have a few kind of specific cycles, Saturn and Pisces, which I talked about, which is one of the main themes that we're playing out. But we also look to kind of these nodal transits that is where the eclipses happen. So where the eclipses happen, it goes for about 18 months. Eclipses have been a big deal in the United States this year because they've been visible from a lot of places domestically. They're not always visible in certain areas of the world. It really depends on the path, the time of the year, and things like that. So eclipses are kinds of points of destiny, and we work with a nodal cycle for 18 months where we're really weaving this tapestry of experience within our personal world. And the nodes shifted last summer from Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra, North Node in Aries, South Node in Libra. And we're really on this healing path to understand, what does interdependence in relationship truly mean? And where are we potentially skewing ourselves towards codependence or hyper-individualism, right? That would be kind of the extreme in our ability to relate to. It can be in relationship, but also really anything. We can have a very codependent relationship to something. We can also have a hyper focus on ourselves. And what we really want to work to is this conscious and equal partnership that comes when there's two individuals who are able to be themselves wholly and fully and come together in order to almost have this sort of spiritual relationship that creates a third entity, which is the relationship. So there's not one person, completing the other person. And we've been told this since the beginning of time, in all of the fairy tales and, Jerry Maguire, like, you complete me, right? Oh my God, that has a hold on so many people still.
Let that go.
Yeah. And I understand the sentiment behind it, right?
Yeah.
Of like, my life feels like it wouldn't be complete without you. And also, how do we step into relationships and allow ourselves to be really whole individuals? And through that, be able to almost like overflow our love into another person without it coming from this place of fear or what's the right word here? Dependence, or even sometimes what happens is like the power dynamic gets really skewed in those instances. And we're trying collectively to come back towards a greater equilibrium or harmony within our relationships. And so since the first eclipse would have been last March of 2023. So since that time, if you're listening, you might just think about what has come up for you relationally. Have there been relationships that have had to end because there wasn't an ability to really come into a greater sense of consciousness and intentionality in the relationship? And this is not just romantic relationships. This is friendships, family relationships, business relationships. Something that I'm dealing with a lot with clients right now is relational rupture, where there has been co-founders or team members that have dealt with some type of conflict, and how do we really come back together and repair what has been rebuilt? And this is leading us to investigate, what does intimacy really mean to us? Truly, beyond what we've been told intimacy is, which is for most of us this idea of, physical intimacy, sex. Even that is being really investigated. But intimacy is about truth, and it is about sharing the truth of who you are fully and wholly with another human, or having that type of really clear, conscious relationship with something. So that also collectively has been kind of evolving throughout the past again, like 18 or so months. We're almost coming to the end of this, and we're going to begin the next cycle of eclipses where the North Node is moving into Pisces. So you can see how the Saturn in Pisces transit was almost preparing us energetically to then move into this next evolution as the nodes shift. We have our first eclipse in Pisces in September, and then the nodes will shift early next year.
Yeah, we needed all the spiritual practice so that we could go into these relationships and be like, this one's getting blown up, this one's gonna stay together, this one's...
Yeah, I mean, relationship is the highest form of spiritual practice, truly. Like, how do we stay centered in ourselves when someone else's needs, motivations, desires, values are in contradiction to mine? And if we're choosing one another consciously to stay together in the relationship, can I really stay in that agreement and not try to control or manage or, change the other person?
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. As you're speaking about this too, I've been thinking a bit about, I guess I'm going to call it relationship to self, but I'm also thinking about the inner masculine feminine and that internal struggle that can happen. I'm just wondering if this is resonant with you at all. Is there that power struggle internally of an extreme hyper independence one way or the other, and what does it look like to have that beautiful inner union? Is that potentially a piece of this?
100%, absolutely. Yeah,
Talk
because
to me about it.
Aries is ruled by Mars, Libra is ruled by Venus, and so in astrology, these are the masculine, feminine principles, right? Non-gendered, but the principle of doing, the principle of being or receptivity. And this is also really dependent on where individually these nodes, these polarities are falling within the individual chart and where you may experience specific elements. So for some, the micro is always a representation of the macro and the macro of the micro. So yes, it can definitely be individual. And for some, it might be even more highlighted in where it's happening in their chart. But this need for integration, truly, of really this ability to merge these two so that they can be almost like a synergistic relationship versus one trying to overpower the other. I even see this in and some people will probably have a big problem with this, but the idea that we move from a matriarchy to a patriarchy and a lot of the rhetoric around, well, we have to go back to a matriarchy because things were better then. And it's actually how I view it is, no, we need to find a way for these energies to work together.
Woman, I feel like this is my life's work. Yeah, I just really have been like, oh no, we're birthing something new that we've never seen before. And I know we're going to talk about what you're doing in your work and in the working place. That's been something that almost brings me to tears in this moment. I'm not quite sure why, but the work that I was doing when I was in more of a corporate setting, I just felt this compulsion to do what I could to integrate the feminine in the workplace and not to change it into a matriarchy and not to shit on the patriarchy, but to say sorry if that's a little crass, but how do we do this here? And I don't have the answer, but my sense or what comes to me from time to time is I don't know if we can recreate what currently is, but I do believe that we can birth something new and entirely different. And I don't know what that looks like. So you're smiling.
Yeah.
Tell me what your thoughts are on that, or what you're seeing. Yeah.
Yes. I think this is really, so another big transit we have is Pluto in Aquarius. So Pluto is a generational planet. what we would call, because it takes 248 years to get all the way around. And I don't want to make this a Pluto lesson. I really want to stay in on your question because it's, or insight or reflection, because it is so beautiful. And I think in so many ways, we are recreating what we've never seen before. And that is bizarre and uncomfortable and confusing sometimes. Saturn in Pisces is confusion, because if we haven't ever been modeled the type of relationship that we deeply desire, the type of romantic partnership, business partnership, friendship, whatever, if we've never been modeled that and we don't see it in our environment and we have to create it, there is a lot of excitement that comes, like that can feel really thrilling or really terrifying, depending on how well you use your tools and feel like you have capacity to do that. On the corporate level, 100%. And also globally, how do we start to work together? Is this a crazy idea? Probably a little bit, but I believe it's possible. And the Pluto in Aquarius, how this plays out, it stays in one specific sign for about 20 years. 2008, we're going to go back. 2008. So it influences an entire generation, a Pluto transit. Year 42, I'm 40. You and I are probably have the same Pluto placement, which is Pluto in Libra, which is about like really retransforming relationship, conscious and equal partnerships in our life. And that was like our mission. So these missions come through the Pluto placement in your birth chart, but then collectively we get to work with the energy as it moves through the charts. So Pluto in Capricorn. Capricorn is the symbol of the authority, of limitation, boundary, structure. It is the patriarchy. It is about kind of this like fatherly energy, like father time, father, our father. Saturn is sometimes thought of as fathering, how we experienced the father in our chart. 2008, we know what happened in 2008. Right?
So wait, sorry, let me pause you because you said are we moving into Capricorn or the father figure, or we're moving out of that?
We're moving out of it.
Okay.
It has been happening. It was transiting through that since 2008.
Got it. Okay.
So since 2008, yeah, Pluto, and thank you for clarifying because I know that I get in a tangent. Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008. We have, economic crisis that happened around that time. And we start to go into this collective experience of death and rebirth around this idea, the patriarchy, authority, self-responsibility, personal responsibility, what that means to us. That transit ended, where it's about to come back for a hot stint during the election, which is a whole thing astrologically, but we'll move into Aquarius in November and we'll stay there until 2043. And what I believe this is us birthing something that has never existed before in many areas of our life. Because Aquarius is the anarchist, the rebel, the disruptor. It is individual freedom. It is about, I want to be all of who I am. And I want the same freedom for you. And that has to mean, again, that I feel comfortable in the fact that you do not think, look, believe everything that I think, look, and believe. And so we are really like in this huge moment in time where anything is really possible. And again, we don't know how it's going to play out because there's always free will. And it could go in this direction where we start to really work together collectively towards evolution and growth, where we respect Mother Earth and everything that she has given us, where we stop just taking and extracting and without conscious awareness, because Aquarius is air, air is always consciousness. Capricorn was earth, right? There's like, it's breadcrumbs. It's like these little tiny signs and synchronicities that are moving us towards something bigger than I think we can even comprehend right now.
Thank you for breaking that down. This is like many times I've heard people saying we're moving from this age into this age, or we're birthing something new. This is the first time I've heard it articulated this way, and it is so helpful to have the framework, but also I cannot wait for listeners to hear this and just to hear what their experience is of hearing this, because I'm getting chills up and down my body over and over. I'm like tears coming to my eyes, like my intuition, everything in me is like, this is so resonant and this is truth. And I think on a very personal level, I know, this has just been like turning in me for years, and it's happening now. Like it's happening now, and it does feel very much like birthing something, like having 3 children and having gone through this. Okay, there's a seed of a thing. There's a seed of an idea. It's growing. And then you preparing for it and then be like, it's time. It's time to push this. It's time. And you touched on some of this, but this, how do we work together as a collective, or what is the real opportunity? If you could sort of wave a magic wand looking ahead at these next few years and the opportunity that we have in our free will to choose, what would your encouragement be, or your invitation be for us to choose?
I mean, that's a big question. And I'm going to say my favorite answer. It depends. It depends on the person, number one, because we are all unique. And I might change my mind on this answer. I don't know. I'm shooting off from the cuff here, but every individual has a unique purpose and reason for being here. And every individual comes with a unique set of life experience, past history, probably some trauma, drive, motivation, inspiration, and aspiration. And I don't think there's gonna be one way outside of, I've been feeling into this and this is for myself, but I think it's bigger. My responsibility is to fully accepting my reason for being here, fully accepting my purpose, fully accepting my power, and being willing to take the steps necessary to continue to expand all the way into my potential. And when we do that, number one, we become like a lighthouse for our community, especially when we're doing this work, for those people that are unsure how to get there within themselves, to find the right community, the right leader, the right guide, the right spiritual teacher that can support them in that evolutionary trajectory. But we also, that starts to change energetically the fabric of the collective. And so each person has to really first evaluate like what you're working with. You know, where are you wobbly? Where are you wobbly? What are you afraid of? What do you need to heal beyond from your past? Who do you need to forgive? What can you let go of to stretch yourself out into those places? And next year, we have 4 huge changes happening. 2 of which are planets moving into Aries. Aries is the individual. It is about like warrior energy. It is about our personal power. And so how I kind of see again this playing out is that if there is confusion, if there is escapism, if you are disassociating from your life, if you're burnt out, if you're emotionally overwhelmed, if you're experiencing any of these, it's time. It's time to figure it out. To not turn away and look the other way, but to look at everything courageously, bravely, and to hold it with so much love and compassion. That's how we take the magic of Pisces and really take that gift into the Aries energy. Because Pluto is the underworld. It is about the shadow. And you mentioned this like idea of birthing something. It's also the planet of death and rebirth. It's where we transform. And it requires that anything that is rotting or decaying or outdated be regenerated into something new. And so we are at this huge rebirth moment where we get to completely innovate something that has never really been done before. And that does require also that we look at the places in us that are still holding that shame or that fear or that rejection of whatever, shame, guilt, past experience, our family, someone else, and the other, the unknown other. I'm afraid of that, so I'm going to reject it. But we have to really make contact with that material within ourselves and be able to hold the potential for something beyond what we can even comprehend in this moment, potentially. I hope that came full circle.
It's so powerful. It did. And it did for me. And I'm just going to kind of sort of reiterate some of this and share back through my lens that, I at first when I even came up with the name, The Whole Shebang, it was like, we want to talk about the whole person through the masculine and feminine. And really what's been surfacing for me more and more is like, my belief is that we're born whole, and then we have traumas that happen, and then we have layers, and then we have numbness, and we have all this stuff that's built back on. But the power in the collective is in the individual becoming whole with self, becoming healed, uncovering the parts that have been in the shadow. And so everything you said to me is just like just like nailed it, Yeah. Just this idea that, how could we wave a magic wand looking into the next 5 years to have the collective be all that it could be? And it starts with self, and it seems so basic. And from my perspective, it's a little, it can be daunting, because it's like, well, how do we change the planet? How do we change the problem that we have with our relationship with Mother Earth? And it starts with one. And then you have a bunch of ones that are collectively raising consciousness and that are impacting our relationship to Mother Earth, Father Sky, and all of the other ways that fleshes out, that collectively we are this intricate universe. We are a universe with different pieces moving in and through, right? And so we all play a part, and then what does that part look like uniquely? So yes, I think you wove that together beautifully, and it's just this is just a powerful transmission. I'm so thankful for this conversation right now in this moment. It's beautiful. Let's, if we can, dive into the Mother Earth piece. I know that you've had a lot of practice and ritual, and I do want to circle back to the ritual aspect, to this truth that we have ancient rituals that have been lost along the way, that I think tend to often bring us back to our relationship to the earth. And I don't know why we've lost them, but I think a good portion of humanity has lost them. And I don't know if I'm in an echo chamber, but I see a lot of people literally kind of waking up, and I would put myself in that category, to, I got to get in nature. I got to get my hands in the dirt. I got to eat different. I got to eat light. Like, I'm just hearing these things that are this connection to food source, connection to nature. So can you speak to your relationship to nature and what that's been for you?
Yeah, I hear you and I agree. I think there's just this delicate, deliberate invitation, or it's almost like a coaxing of us back to a more natural way of being. And part of that is just simply our life. Again, technology, it has so many strengths and gifts, and it has also disconnected us from just this real natural state. And we see its impact in our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health overall. And I don't have statistics because it doesn't matter. We know it's real. My relationship to Mother Earth has been an evolution as well. I think it was something that I really awoke to a more conscious relationship to probably in the last, again, 7 or so years. I grew up in a really rural community, but didn't really have a deliberate relationship to the outside world. But I grew up, playing outside, like being outside all day, and then lived in urban areas for a good majority of my 20s and 30s, and was living in Boston, and I started to sneak away and get to Vermont for, I'd go away for the weekend, and it really reawoke this, because I'm an earth sign, I'm a Virgo, I have strong earth placements, and there is this need for me to be really connected to the natural world. And I mean, I don't even really know how to describe my relationship now to Mother Earth, but it's a consistent, daily, synergistic relationship. There is an exchange between myself and the energy that exists around me. And I am so honored and grateful to live in such a beautiful place. I live up in the mountains in California, outside of LA. It's very different than LA. If you've ever been, you know that it's very different, night and day. But, I could sit outside for hours and just watch the dance of the bugs, the trees, the flowers, the birds, the animals. Like, everything is coexisting in this harmonious, but also like the circle of life. There is also that element to it. But everything is just playing its part. And there's moments where you just see these, like, birds are zooming, bugs are zooming, the trees are, and it's transcendent for me. It really does connect me to this larger energy, this creative force that cannot really be fully known or understood, but it's extremely powerful.
Just as a reflection on the Mother Earth, I know when we were chatting before, you had mentioned that you had written something about your relationship as Lover Earth and right? Your relationship to nature from Mother Earth to Lover Earth. And I thought, yeah, and it's so serendipitous and also just like so the universe that I don't know when it was, gosh, right before I moved. So the very end of March. And I wouldn't describe this is not for any reason. It's just where I'm at in my journey right now. I have a sensitivity to nature that I haven't had before in a way that is almost like I was looking at a flower. This is going to be out there for some people, but that's okay. I'm going there. I was looking at a flower the other day and I just like touched its really soft petal. And I had this moment of like, oh my gosh, we're made up of the same things. Just like we're made up of the same matter. Like we're made up of the same, everything in the universe is made up of the same energy, atoms and matter. And I am that, and it is me. And had these moments of like, oh, the earth has been a provider. The earth has provided food for me. It has provided shelter in different ways. It's provided for me. That's a different relationship to see earth as solely provider. If I was in a relationship romantically and it's like, your job is to provide for me. Thank you for your provision. That's your job. Thank you. Versus lover, which is like, oh, I get to look at the sunset and be like, you're so beautiful. Or like, just like, oh, I get to play in your waters. I get to like jump in this ocean and like ride your waves. And that's just such a different relationship to nature. And so I just wanted to share that because I thought it would be maybe fun for a minute to talk through that lens. And if is that a similar experience that you've been having?
Yeah, it's really about what I would call exchange. The exchange or the relay or the relationship, right? A relationship is relay. It is energy relaying, exchanging between two entities. And just as you said, if there was any other relationship in our life where the expectation was you give and you receive nothing in return, that relationship likely isn't going to last very long because there isn't a reciprocity. And so there's this ability to, as you said, really reflect on how we treat this earth, the words that we say, the way that we expect or don't, and what we give back to it. Whether that's through making an offering, and it doesn't have to be a huge offering. It could be some water that you offer up to the ocean as a thank you for getting to play in her softness. It could be some flower petals that you have blessed and prayed in that are a thank you for the nourishment that our Mother Earth provides for us. It could be, as you said, like touching a flower and just commenting on its beauty and thanking it for the ability to see it, smell it, touch it. There are so many ways that are so simple. It's as easy. This comes directly from one of my teachers, but I was in a training with him and he was talking about one of his students asking, how can I develop my connection or my relationship or strengthen it to Mother Earth? And he said, pick up trash. That was his thing. Pick up cigarette butts on the side of the road. Like, how often do we walk wherever we live and see trash and just leave it? Because it's not ours. I didn't do that, so I'm not going to pick it up. I'm not going to, I'm not responsible for that. And it was like that moment was so eye-opening for me in just, oh yeah, why? Why would I not want to thank her for, in that simple way? And that can open up such an energetic shift, both within yourself as with just, you'll notice it. It becomes a collaboration. And that's how we co-create with spirit, with divine, with Mother Earth. It's being in a greater reciprocity and also paying attention, paying attention to what we consume again, what we value, what we, if you value farmers, like purchasing, and I know that this is a very privileged statement, and I'll say that, but being able to buy from farmers in your area, being able to, buy food directly from like an egg stand in your neighborhood. Not everyone has access to that, and I understand. But if you do, and you have the financial power to do so, this is really important to start understanding where you're investing your energy and your money. And is it really in alignment with what you value? If you value Mother Earth, we probably don't want to be using or drinking water out of plastic bottles every single day. Like, buy a reusable water bottle and use that. There's these small little things that we can understand how our choices every single day directly impact not just ourselves, but the greater collective. Because where is all of that going? It's ending up in our water systems and our food and everything. And there's a reckoning that we kind of have to go through again individually of, how am I treating this, my home?
And maybe part of this thread that's weaving through unexpectedly is relationship. It's, you were talking about that. I can't remember which planets were where. We were talking
the eclipses and the nodes. Yeah, you got it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So what is our relationship to self? What is our relationship to Earth? What is the nature of the relationship? Is it codependent? Is it one-sided? Is there healthy reciprocity? Am I pulling the pieces together? Yeah.
You are. You are recognizing the patterns.
Okay.
So they're not just playing out in one area, right? They're in multiple places. These very key themes are coming to life. And you, having no idea what was happening astrologically, have been tuning into, you said it was earlier this spring?
It was the very end of March. I've got an Instagram reel where I just downloaded this thing. I just wrote this thing and I'm like, I'm not even that close to nature, but it's like, this is Lover Earth. I'm calling you into a relationship. I was like, okay.
You're like, what's happening? Which at the end of March, we had the eclipses.
Oh.
The Libra eclipse and the Aries eclipse. So during eclipse
this is validating.
Season, you had a download that was very connected to, and that probably showed you something in yourself that has shifted how you relate to you, your choices, and everything around you. Yes. 100%.
Cool. This is so fun. This is how we apply it. This is how we apply astrology. Yes.
This is how we apply it.
Okay. This is great. Okay. So I want to circle back to the ritual piece because I know that that's something that's been really important in your life and that you live a ritual. And so I would love for you to just explain what that means and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, ritual to me is, I describe it as the realm of intentional action. And so this is where we are making intentional choices. And I think of infusing our energy into that choice so that it becomes not just our existence in this kind of autopilot, right? I wake up, I brush my teeth, I do my practice, I drink my coffee, I do all the things, but it's like I bring my whole self into the action. And through that, it becomes almost a devotion to something bigger, but also to myself. It's this ability to make a really intentional and conscious choice to be present with and for my life.
I like that you use the word devotion too. That hit me when you just said like it becomes a devotion. If you want to go back into what that means for you and how your practice, I don't even want to say the word practice, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say practice. So it connects me to something bigger, I think. And when you ask me, or anyone asks me, what my favorite ritual is, it's really hard for me because, as I say, I really do my best to live with that intentionality in everything. And that, of course, I don't hit 100% of the mark all of the time because I'm human and it's not perfect, it's progress. But from, the moment I wake up, I have a morning practice that I have committed to, that I do every morning. And it is not that I always want to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and do it, but it's what I have declared to myself that I would commit to. And then I make my coffee and I sit or tea. I've switched from coffee to tea right away. And I sit and I read a little bit of a book, or I pull a card, or I do something that connects me into myself and my spirit and into potentially what maybe I should be considering, or opens up an insight or reflection for me to consider throughout the day. And then I go about my day with this idea that, we're always exchanging energy with everything around us, whether that's with the coffee, the barista at your local coffee shop, or I have a dog. And so our relationship is that same exchange. I invest time and energy into him, and he, gives back his love and unwavering joy. I engage with Mother Earth in that same way. And so it feels, there's a lot of more specific rituals, like magic rituals, that I engage with that are depending on what I'm invoking. I work with my personal astrology chart daily, weekly, monthly. I work with the moon cycles. So depending on what I'm kind of calling in and the energy that I'm tapping into, that will change what I'm working with. But it's really simple. It is just about paying attention to my life and making intentional choices that feel like it's connecting me to something bigger.
Something bigger? Do you label that? Do you not label it?
I call it many things. I call it God. I don't necessarily think it's like some white bearded dude in the sky, but I think that it is an energetic experience. I call it universe. I call it goddess. I call it Mother Earth. I don't know that the name matters. It does if that's what you believe, but for me, right. It's not that important.
Yeah. I've landed on, for now, calling it love with a capital L. It just feels like so at the heart of everything, at the center of the earth, at the core of the earth, at the womb of the earth. It just feels like it is love. It is love. Source is love to me. I don't know how else to describe it, but
and I think that is important because everything that we've talked about up until this point was about returning ourselves to love, right? We come in as love. We come in whole, and you said it. We have experiences and ideas and beliefs and layers of conditioning that move us away from or we forget. But at the end of the day, it's about that sense of really just returning to this place of divine love, like the source of all creation. And so I love that is your word for it, because that's really what it's about.
This is so fun. I love this conversation. I'm just like, do I get to do this right now? This is so fun.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that we haven't talked about is your current work and how you, I mean, well, we did touch on it earlier, but let's come back to that, dive into that a little bit. I just was so encouraged to hear and to see that the work that you're doing is in the workplace. And our connection was through Maggie, and to see how she has integrated something that she has labeled unconventional in the workplace. And to my point earlier about just feeling really like, I guess, convicted to try to find ways, or to encourage, to ignite people to integrate what I'm labeling the feminine, but we can remove that label and talk about intuition, creativity, universe, cosmos, vulnerability. There's sort of characteristics maybe of it too. And you're doing that in your work. And so I'd love to hear about your work.
Yeah. And it's funny because in 2021, I wrote a Jerry Maguire manifesto. Jerry Maguire is really hot in my mind today for some reason. I don't know why. I created this role that I dubbed head witch in charge. And it was essentially this, I haven't watched Billions, but I've heard that it's the woman on Billions who is kind of behind the scenes. I think she's a therapist or psychiatrist. Have you seen this show?
No.
Okay, so she's a psychiatrist or a therapist, and she is kind of coaching or supporting this organization. And I want to say it's probably like on Wall Street or a hedge fund or something. And all of these people are coming to her with these personal issues, and she's supporting them through that. And that's essentially what it was I wrote about the way that we have been engaging in our employee relationships from employer to employee. We know that it wasn't working. That was made very apparent at the pandemic. People are struggling, and we're gonna quick react and throw together a couple of wellness webinars and a step challenge and something else that isn't really addressing the individual issues that each person has. And I thought, what if an organization had someone who was essentially available for any employee to book space or time and come and do a one-on-one breathwork healing session, or gain perspective on a challenge in their life through an astrological reading, or they needed guidance on this specific decision and they wanted to have a tarot reading, or just anything that individual needed.
I want to work there. Do you want to hire me?
Imagine, well, does anyone want to hire me? I mean, this has evolved, but I do believe, and this was the idea of the feminine principle needs to be brought in, this nurturance, this empathy, compassion, understanding, really brought into our corporate environments if we want to continue to grow towards our greatest potential. We can't.
Can I just pause it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I'm just feeling this fire right now of yes, we need to bring her in. And if we don't, she'll walk out and she'll birth it somewhere else. I just think we're coming to this place of time's up. buttercup. You know?
Time's up. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is mirroring everything we've already talked about in the cyclical nature of what has been happening astrologically. And the reality is that the old ways of doing things aren't gonna work anymore. That might mean that your business might still be going and you're just getting by, but you're not actually expanding into the fullness of your potential.
Yeah.
Because you're only playing one energy. And that energy is productivity, as much money as possible, like extract from the earth, all of these really capitalistic, patriarchal ways of thinking. And it doesn't mean, again, that we completely swing to the other side. It's how do we learn to integrate them and work and get them to merge and work together for the greatest good for all, for the employer as well as the employee. And in order to do that, I mean, the statistics of this are pretty strong.
Advantageous, yeah.
Yes, advantageous. Thank you. You know, there's the quiet quitting, the employee engagement. Everything is low right now. And similar to this idea of relationship, if you are coming into a relationship saying you're not giving enough, you need to give more, but you're not investing that same energy back into the individual, what is giving them motivation to want to show up and do their work? Eventually, it's like, this is the crisis point we're at. And it doesn't take that much, truly, to just simply see someone and validate their experience and understand that they are an individual with so many things happening and say, we see all of you and we want you here and we care about your growth and your evolution. And so how I've been built, like that was like a download moment where I had this and I wrote this manifesto of like, this isn't going to work anymore. We need to start bringing in the feminine principles, and this is what I see happening. And then my life totally changed, which is how this stuff happens, right? When you reorganize yourself, I ended a relationship and changed careers.
Are we the same person? I blew up my entire life.
Yeah, and my life kind of blew up around me, and it even in that felt like going back to the way I had been before, living my life was the easy choice, that I couldn't really do things the way I had been doing them. And so I moved across the country and I really spent this time getting clearer on what I wanted my legacy to be. And just even in my personal chart, I mean, Aquarius is in my career chart. So right now, Pluto is moving into my house of career for the next 20 years. And I'm also supposed to be a little bit of a disruptor. I'm supposed to be someone that helps people understand that we don't have to do things the way they've always been done. And I can see how the pieces play together in order to move us collectively in that direction. I also have Lilith in my chart there, which is like the wild feminine and this intuitive feminine power. And so I'm also supposed to be kind of this public, like that is a big part of my public identity. And as I moved and started living this new life, I just had these ideas coming in of this is because I was working with clients one-on-one and I love that work, but also I desire a greater level of intimacy in every aspect of my life. So people that were coming for, one-off readings, I didn't feel like I had that same level of exchange that I deeply desired, because I do want to support the transformation and the evolution of the bigger picture. I've always said, where can I go to be of the most impact? That's kind of been one of my North Star principles. And this is what started and I had forgotten about that manifesto I wrote in 2021, but I found it as I was, creating this business. And so I created a business where I take, essentially it's self-mastery for conscious leaders. So how do we really become how do we deepen the intimacy with ourselves so that we can be conscious, intentional, compassionate leaders in our community, whether that's, in an organization, in your community work, in your family system. And so I'm taking astrology and healing work and breath work and intentional personal development, creating experiences, creating containers for relational repair, creating content and webinars for self-awareness, but through my lived experience and through my lens, which has a deep connection to Mother Earth. So we're talking about the elements, we're talking about how they exist as consciousness within us, and how to bring ourselves into a greater state of harmony so that we can be that impact in our worlds. So that looks like, working one-on-one with executives or business owners to help them and kind of coaching or mentorship. That also, it looks like working with a team to help create synergy and engagement within that container. And that also looks like building experiences for organizations, whether that's retreats, team offsites, day retreats, leadership council, right? This kind of idea that we are treating the individual and as best we can, and supporting that greater self-awareness, self-trust, and acceptance so that there can be that exchange with their life, with their role, with their organization and their community.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Have birthed just beautiful, powerful work, and what an amazing container for people to have that are infusing their consciousness through their work. I mean, it's just, I don't know why I just thought that none of this existed until all of a sudden here I am meeting all of these amazing people that for years have been cultivating things and putting things out there that I don't know if it is because of our ability with technology or if it's because we're entering a new era that so much of this is coming to the surface. And I have had more conversations in the last couple months, not just podcast guests either, of people that are like, I don't know how else to say this, but my body, I cannot do the things that I was doing. I cannot work, or my body will shut down. It is shutting down, or my life is falling apart because I keep pushing, trying to make this way work, and this way is not working anymore. It's just not. And people are trying. It's not for lack of effort, but it's like, oh no, it's just not working. So it's really beautiful that you're creating that space and opportunity for people.
It is such a joy to get to do that. I mean, it really is. Like, I love this work so much, and I believe in its power. I truly believe this is the future of corporate culture. And I am so excited to be, I wouldn't say at the forefront, but closer to the front. Leaders go first. You have to step up and do something that's never been done before if things are going to change. And so, yes, there's a lot of people doing it. And I think we're going to see a dynamic shift over the next probably like 10 or so years. I think throughout this whole Pluto and Aquarius transit, we'll definitely see a lot of innovation and change. But a lot of that will come kind of at the beginning as we're starting to understand how these energies are inviting us collectively into new ways of being.
It's powerful. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you're like, I really wish, Jen, that you would have asked me this?
I honestly don't think so. We talked about a lot, and
we did.
It really, that conversation took so many turns, and I want people to feel like, I think they're going to walk away with a lot of stuff to chew on and ponder and sit with. And I don't want to overwhelm any more than we might have already, because there was a lot of deep discussion there. So I just appreciate this conversation, and I hope that people feel seen and validated and really ready to step up courageously into who they are.
That is one thing. I'm glad you just said that. That's one thing I wanted to just, I don't know, land on, is just the importance of the courage that it takes to step into a person's authenticity, and how I don't know why it feels like the hardest thing to do, because it's all we're wired to be, is who we are. I mean, I guess I do know we're primal, and we like don't want to be outcast, and like all of these other things. We want to fit in, but you think that it would be easier to just snap into alignment with who we're designed to be, but it takes a lot of effing courage. And there are a lot of people that I think I see wrestling with fear right now, and fear of what ifs and what will people think, and can I really change? I mean, real change requires a lot of shedding. It may not in some ways for some people, but it's a lot of rocks to turn over potentially. So I'm glad that you emphasize that, and I want to do the same. Just like for the people that are listening, like, you have everything that you need to be all that you're designed to be.
Most of our life, not most of it, but a lot of our life is, whether that's in our society, in our marketing, in even the wellness industry, is targeted to show us that who we are is wrong. And if you are consistent, and that can come through our lived experience, from our families, from people that can't love us, from whatever. And if all you've ever been told is that who you are is wrong, it gets really hard to believe that being who you are is safe. And that's why we need community, and we need really powerful, loving relationships to reflect that back to us when we forget. Because it is possible to live in that state of embodiment and alignment and courage.
Catie, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you for being such a beautiful, clear channel. I just feel like you're just channeling this whole conversation.
Yeah.
It feels so good.
Yeah, I mean, I told you, I came in here empty. I came in here just ready to receive
You did.
whatever was going to come through. And I truly have trust that it's for the people that are going to hear it, and that they are ready to receive that message and that permission to expand. I mean, it's all been about like expanding into the fullest, every single corner and crevice of your potential and all that you are. So thank you for the space to share.
For the people that are curious to get in touch with you, where is the best place that they can find you and connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is my name, Catie Macken, CatieMacken.com. I am on Instagram as well with that name. I'm on LinkedIn with that name. And my email is Catie@CatieMacken.com. So people can find me there. I have a Substack, but they'll get all the lowdown at my website and everywhere that they need to go.
Perfect. And we'll have all of that in the show notes too.
Great.
So, okay. Woo, I feel full. This has been a great Lionsgate portal day for me. Thank you so much, Catie.
Thanks, Jen.
Love to you.
Love to you.